Hi, welcome back. In today's lesson, we're going to continue our discussion of early river valley civilizations, and we're going to hop over to India and look at the Indus River Valley. We're going to see a lot of the same similarities that we saw in Mesopotamia and Egypt, but some new characteristics that Indus is well known for, like the grid system in their city, and then also the disappearing act that they had, because they kind of just disappeared off the face of the earth. So make sure you're in your interactive notebook and follow along as we go. All right, so we're on page 7 of your interactive notebook. Let's first talk about the geography of the Indian subcontinent. The Indus River Valley is located in basically present-day India. Some of the biggest landmasses included India, Pakistan, and current-day Bangladesh. With geography and thinking about like natural protection, they had mountains to the north, desert to the east. So they are pretty much isolated by themselves, which again could be a good thing and a bad thing if we remember with Egypt. You know, isolation is great because you're protected, but also it might cause some problems when it comes to, say, trade. They have the two rivers that are there kind of surrounding them, or that we're going to worry about with the idea of the early river valley civilization, is the Indus and the Ganges rivers. They both kind of converge and create this nice fertile plain in the middle. That's where our river valley civilization is going to set up. The other thing that we have to worry about are seasonal winds, or monsoons, which even still to today dominate India's climate. So in the winter, we have very dry winds, and in the summer, we have very wet rain. So it's just, when you say a monsoon, you know, kind of, we use that like very, very heavy rain. So that's what their summers are dominated by. So some of our environmental challenges, again, this is a theme that we've talked about both in Egypt and Mesopotamia. Floods along the Indus are happening, just like in Egypt and Mesopotamia, but they again are unpredictable, just like we've saw before. Sometimes the rivers could actually change course. Isn't that fun? Just have it change course on you. Rainfall was also unpredictable with those monsoons. If we had too little rain, the plants are going to die out and people are going to go hungry, just like we saw in our other cultures. We've got too much rain. Again, the flip side of that problem. It's going to devastate the property, might wipe out an entire village. So unpredictability is not so good. We don't like that in these times. The Indus civilization is kind of revolutionary. They come up with a few things that they're ahead of their time, really. They really did influence the other cultures of Mesopotamia and Egypt. As early as 7000 BCE, we see evidence of agriculture and the domestication of animals. So we're seeing that just like we saw with our agricultural revolution way back in the Neolithic age. By 3200 BCE, we start seeing signs of people farming in villages along that Indus River and creating our first Indus River Valley civilizations. By 2500 BCE, we start to see that the Indus River Valley was laid out on a grid system, which is something that's very common to us today. If you think about cities, they're laid out on these block grids because it's very easy to navigate. And as you can see in the picture off to the right, you can kind of see a map of kind of what it generally looked like. But it's very interesting to see that as early as 2500 BCE, the grid system was developed. And it's really interesting because like after Indus goes away, we kind of forget about it, or it isn't passed down. We don't rediscover it until many years later. So very, very interesting. Go Indus River Valley. So we also see, and this is another big one, like, whoa, where did it go? Why didn't we hold on to it? Their engineers created plumbing and sewage systems. That was like unheard of until almost the 19th century. When we get into medieval Europe and we talk about some of the ways in which they lived, it was gross, no plumbing, no running water, not cool. So it's amazing that, you know, back before the year 0, they had this going on, and then it just kind of goes away. The Indus River Valley was also known as the Harappan civilization because they had a city known as Harappa. So you might see that interchange sometimes. Indus River Valley and Harappan society, or Harappan civilization, they mean the exact same thing. It's the exact same place. Their city was built on a mud brick platform, and that was it was elevated up a little bit with the idea to protect, or the the effect of protecting them from those possible floods. So kind of rising it up. You think about like at the beach, a lot of people build their houses up a little bit higher so that if they get like the tide comes in, their house is protected, kind of like on stilts or whatever. But these were built on a mud brick platform. So the Harappan culture, or again, the Indus River Valley culture, they had a writing system of over 400 symbols. It was so intricate that even to today, we still can't decipher it. And I say we, but I mean scientists. I'm not out there trying to decipher it. But scientists still can't crack the code of what these people were talking about. So it's very interesting to see if we ever will. And that is also going to play into some of, the mystery of where did this place go, which we'll talk more about in a minute. The cities appeared uniform in culture, meaning there weren't any like big social divides, which is also interesting because we'll see later in life the Indian civilization or the Indian culture is very much based on social classes and the caste system. Animals were very important. It's very important to the culture. That was evident in, pictures and toys, things like that. The idea that they found, archaeologists and our anthropologists, they find this evidence. They find toys that really suggests that these people were prosperous. The fact that a family could afford to go out and buy toys really said something about their society, saying that, people weren't, scraping together money, to try and get to the next day. They actually built, made, and sold toys. So that suggests something about their economy. Most likely the priests were linked closely to the rulers. Again, we saw this in the other two societies, and we've seen some religious artifacts that kind of reveal kind of a cross or a link to the modern Hindu culture that is still prevalent in modern India. We also have seen evidence of them trading with other cultures, specifically Mesopotamia. So again, that was something like I talked about with the geography, the fact that they are isolated and they are protected by those natural boundaries. It's a good thing, but it also is going to mean it's going to make it a little bit difficult to maybe trade with other societies. They're going to have to get creative. Thinking about the Indian where it is located geographically, it is peninsula, so they also have, they have the whole section of the Indian Ocean on all around their side, so they could, if they have watercraft, they can go trade with Mesopotamia by sea. So last but not least, let's talk about how this came to an end. As by 1750, we start to see signs of decline, and it really is a mystery to this day. They're not really sure what happened to wipe out this civilization, but it just kind of disappeared. There have been the hypotheses of earthquakes or floods or soil depletion, just some sort of like environmental disaster that might have just kind of forced them to die off and disappear. There's also the hypothetical possibility maybe that they were overtaken. And maybe like the people assimilated into a new culture, because there's evidence by 1500 BCE, another group known as the Aryans come in and become dominant. So it's really just still kind of a mystery. We're not sure. I think kind of the running thing that I've seen from looking through the internet and some things, it's kind of they're leaning towards like, again, either they were overtaken or it was some sort of an environmental disaster. So it's really interesting just to see that, this society, this culture just kind of disappeared. So it's a modern mystery. So maybe you can find out something about it. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for our next episode or our next lesson, which will be on China, which will be the last one that we talk about with early river civilization. So again, thanks for watching.